Good evening, everyone. You're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and I'm your host, Joe Abadi. I want to thank my sponsors, of course, for helping us out with the show tonight. That would be Motion Pro, Vintco, Full Circle Racing, the International Motocross Museum, Replica MotorcycleParts.com, Racer X, and Preston Petty Products. All of them always a big help, and they have been for quite a few years now. Here's just a logo of all their names. Just want to cover that before we get started. My guest tonight has had a career that has expanded over 42 years as a motocross racer. He was a three-time national champion in South Africa. He's the winner of the 1980 Daytona Supercross, a recent inductee into the Trailblazers Hall of Fame, as well as the recipient of the Edson Dye Lifetime Achievement Award. It's my pleasure to have as my guest tonight, Mr. Rex Staten. Rocket Rex, thank you for joining me.
All right, Joe, no problem. Thanks for having me.
It's wonderful to have you here. And yeah, you look great right there. Get right there in the center. There it is. Perfect, Rex. There it is. That is absolutely wonderful. Rex, in my research, I learned that you were about 13 years old when you got on an OSA 175 and entered your first race. Can you tell us about that and how it went?
Yeah, I kept asking my dad if I could go racing, and we always went out and seen these little club races going on. The place was the club. It was a hare scrambles.
Right.
I just follow everybody, and we had to stand in front of the bike, and then we had to run around, jump on it, kickstart it, take off because they drop a banner, you know. It was like a hare scrambles, and I took off. I took off third. Before you know it, I had the lead, and I won the race. And from then on, it's been racing ever since. That's how it all got started.
Yeah, you really progressed very, very quickly when it came to racing. And I wanted to know, at what age did you get an AMA professional license? And maybe what were some of the races and things that led up to you deciding that's what you wanted to do?
I tried to play football, and I had problems with some people in football and stuff like that. They would like want to spit on you, whatever. And the next thing you know, I was fighting with them, you know, and I was getting in trouble, throwing them on the ground and doing that kind of stuff, you know. And what happened was I thought, you know what, I'll race a motorcycle, no problem. And I just loved it, and I liked it, and it kept me busy. My dad told me, hey, come home, do your chores, you make sure you got good grades, and you can ride every day. And I just go out and ride by myself every day. And I just, before I knew it, I was 15 and a half. And I went to a race. I was a junior. I went up to a race called CMC that was putting on, named Stu Peters, was put at LJ Ranch up in Utah. Yep. And I went up there and I signed up. And I told Stu, let me race amateur if you let me. I'm a junior. And he said, yeah, let me see how practice goes. And after practice, I asked him, he goes, no, you're riding expert. And I'm like, I'm not an expert, Stu. He's like, hey, you're going fast as experts are. I'm like, oh, okay. And I went and did it. And then my dad told me, I said, Dad, there's Lackey, there's DeSoto, there's Billy Clements, there's Brian Holcomb. You know, everybody was there on the line. And I'm thinking, wow. He says, you can put your pants on this the way they do. And I said, no, I jump into mine, Dad. And he got a kick out of that, you know. And before we knew it, I ended up second behind Billy Clements at that race, you know. And I beat John DeSoto and Brad Leckie and all those guys that I thought, all right, made some money. I'm going to race expert. I was 15 and a half, and I had to wait a little while before I could get my license. And then when I got 16, they gave me my license. And then by that time, I was trying to go to Europe and stuff to race for Suzuki, and that didn't go through because my dad told me, you got to get a high school diploma. You're too young, and when you finish school, then you can go. And I said, okay, Dad. And then I went night school, summer school, do whatever I had to do to get out a year early. And then when I graduated, I was high school, I was a junior. And then Honda signed me right away.
You know, I found that very, very interesting, Rex, that your parents were behind your race career, but your father was very adamant about you finishing high school and getting a good education. And your passion for racing is absolutely incredible, too, because you went and took night classes and extra courses and machinist courses and did whatever you could to graduate actually a year early. 1974, how do you wind up getting a call from Factory Honda to become sponsored by them?
I was winning all the races at Saddleback and Corona and Carlsbad and everything around. I was beating Mosier and all the guys that were racing expert, the local races on my Mako. And then
Right.
Honda just bought a bunch of us, and bought, Mosier and Narstead and me and Bruce McDougall and Chuck Bauer, Billy Clement or Billy Grossi, and we had a big team.
Yeah.
I was only 500 guys.
Rex, do you?
We had like three
Right.
125 guys, and I was only 500 guys.
I was wondering if at that time you remember how much your contract was from Honda in 1974.
I think I was getting 1,500 a week. No, a month.
A month, right?
Yeah, a month.
Not bad. Not bad. 1974.
No, not yeah, not like what the boys get today.
Right. A big part of being a factory rider, Rex, is giving feedback to the mechanics so they can give it to the factory. So people can then get a better production bike as the years go on. Do you remember what that may have been like at that time? Were you giving feedback back to the factory, or were the bikes just that good? Tell us a little bit about that.
No, they wasn't really that good. I had problems. I kept hurting my ankles. The foot pegs were too low. And I was trying to get the foot pegs raised and stuff like that, and we just riding what we had. And I didn't have a practice bike. I had to race a 250 or practice on a 250 and then go back and race the 500s. And
okay.
I kept the bikes in half and stuff. And then Honda decided to build me a 4-stroke. And I was the first one to ride that 4-stroke in 74 at Evel Knievel's race. And I got second behind Peter Kartsmaker on it. Because the night before that, it was a big flood. They flooded the whole track by accident. And it was a mud race, and it was good I was on that 4-stroke because that thing really hooked up. It wasn't very fast. It was only a 350 punched out to a 410. Mike Bell's dad built the motor for Honda, and C&J did the frame. And then I rode that. I broke that. We went to Honda Hills, and I came off that big downhill jump, and I landed right at the bottom and broke the frame. And then we had a 360, and I went out there and raced that and broke that frame. And they told me I could break a lead ball.
Yeah. I read that. I read that once too. I thought that was pretty funny. Hey, in the meantime, Rex, I got to thank one of our sponsors, ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. Be sure to get over to Paul Parkinson Sr.'s website and see what he's got there for your vintage Hondas, Yamahas, Suzukis. He's making transmission gears in the new year. He's got specialty items that nobody will ever be able to replicate, including this 1973, 1974 pickle silencer for your Honda CR250 Elsinores. That's Paul Parkinson Sr. and ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com. If I may, Rex, I want to throw in something personal here. The first race I'd ever been to, the first professional race, was in Unadilla, 1974, and I remember hearing that 4-stroke rip up and down those hills with you on it. There was nothing else like that at that time, and that was one of my questions. You just brought it up actually before the question I was even able to answer it. Was that an experimental thing, or was that something they were really looking to move forward on? How did you wind up with that 4-stroke? It was just because you kept breaking the 2-strokes?
No, I think they were looking ahead, like figure the future. They were going to try to make a nice 4-stroke and make it work out, but it was pretty heavy and stuff like that at the time. And they tried to do best they could for what we had, And I mean, the 4-strokes nowadays are like way better.
Oh yeah,
but it's what we had, and I kept breaking their bikes and stuff, And I mean, we went to the Coliseum. I did Daytona, then I went to Hangtown, won the first moto there, and they were all telling me, "Hey, Hartwig is the sand specialist. Nobody can beat him in the sand." I said, "Oh bullshit, I can beat him," and I beat him in the first moto. I ran away with it. Second moto, I was in a big pile up in the first turn, tore my pipe off my bike. I ran back to the pits, put a new pipe on and stuff. By that time, I was 3 laps down, and I had to work my way. But then we went from there to the Coliseum. I broke the gearbox in the bike. They took Arsted's bike and gave it to me to ride in the 500 class, and they told me it was a 270 for me to ride. Because I said, "Isn't that a 250?" And they said, "Yeah, but we just changed the barrel." And I'm thinking, I don't think you could change a barrel that fast. I didn't know what was going on. I don't know if I ended up riding a 250, but I rode Rich Arsted's bike, and I won the race, and that was it. That was the Coliseum. And then after that, I kept hurting my ankles. I kept having to tape my ankles and stuff like that. And then the next year, I just kind of got away from them and then went with John Basset, a private guy, and was a privateer after that for a couple of years.
I did have a question that came in from Warren Reed about the Basset sponsorship, and he wanted to know a lot more about it. And so did I, really, Rex. So tell us about John Basset, what that bike was like, and then we'll get on with the USGP 1975 stuff like that. But being you brought up the Basset name, let's talk about that a bit. How did that progress? What was that bike like?
What happened was I was at the Saddleback racetrack, and I won that day by a long ways. And he walked up to me and he goes, "Hey, I'd like to sponsor you because I like the way you ride." And I'm like, "Oh, you do, huh?" He goes, "Here's my phone number. Call me Monday." And I said, "All right." And then I went home Monday and I called him. He said, "Come down and see me." And I went down and seen him, and he took me to Bates Leathers, and we made my leathers. And I've always been a patriotic guy, red, white, and blue, stars and stripes.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, okay." And I got hooked up with him, and he said, "I'll take care of everything from time you walk out of your house till you go back into your house." And he kind of sponsored me and took care of me. And then we always had kind of nice bikes. I was the first one to have anodized wheels and all that stuff. And I rode real hard. And, we won some races and stuff, and the local races, Gold State Series, like the 250, 500. I would win those series out here, because no one could really kind of beat me out here at the time. And just that's how it got started. And then what was it, about 75, we came to Carlsbad GP. And
right. Here's where, hey, Rex, give me 1 second. I've got to take a hard break to support one of my sponsors who supports me. Then we're going to get back and we're going to talk about that incredible day at the 1975 USGP with you on the CZ. We'll be right back with more Rex Staten.
Motocross struck America, coming from Europe like a lightning bolt, striking the hearts and minds of people all across the country and the world. Battles of intense racing and cutting rivalries with loyalty to brands and heroes intensified as years of blood, sweat, and dirt flew through the minds of those memories of champions as they wrestled their machines through almost impossible tracks. But where are those past champions? And where are their bikes? Terry Good, an ex-pro motocross racer, has made it his life mission to honor these heroes and the bikes they rode to stardom. We raced, we rode, we lived and breathed motocross. Go back in time and relive those moments, now preserved for the first time ever in the world's first museum dedicated to the history of motocross. Our new building is in the gate. Help us get a great start and you can be part of history. Go to internationalmotocrossmuseum.org and become a part of our team.
Okay, we're back with Rex Staten. We were just talking about the 1975 season as it was coming closer and closer to the USGP at Carlsbad, one of probably the most prestigious race in the United States at that time, often won by Garrett Walsink, and Americans were always having a difficult time there. Rex, you were between Mako and CZ at that time. Right upon the USGP date, you and Harry Clem had a CZ. You guys were entered in the USGP. How much time did you and Harry have with that bike to prepare it for that race?
What happened, I went ahead and CZ was supposed to give me a factory bike, but they didn't. They just gave me Jim Fishback's old desert bike. And it was all worn out and clapped out. I went down, picked it up, and I wasn't really happy with it. And then I brought it back, and I did the best we could with it to make it work pretty decent, got the motor to run halfway decent. And it was kind of heavy. It was 200, weighed in 242 pounds. Everybody made fun of me at the GP, but I whole shotted them all at that race. But meanwhile, that's how it all got kind of started. I just wish I would have been on a lot better bike. And what happened was I got the whole shot. I took off, and then Roger passed me right at the beginning, and I thought, he's going too slow. I just passed him back on the downhill, and I just started running away with it. And like they always say, I was the fastest guy down that hill. No one's ever went that fast down that hill. Yeah. And it's kind of funny because we didn't have no brakes back then. They didn't work very good, really. But that was me on the top of the hill. I always said, if I'm at the top of the hill and I'm 4 bike leagues behind you, I will be ahead of you time we hit the bottom. That was just me.
But now, how much time did you and Harry have with that bike before race day? A week, 2 weeks?
We probably had 2 weeks.
Okay.
Not very,
and as many people may know, or they may not know, who are watching the show today, you had a rear motor mount break on that bike during the first moto. The engine was loose. It was rocking in the frame. You did all you could to hang on. How much time did you have between the first moto and the second moto to get that bike repaired? What was the atmosphere like in the pits during that time?
When I came in and stuff, it was pretty bad. The motor was shaking pretty bad, and we didn't have no welding rods or nothing. We just had some clothes hangers. And John Basset, he just started use a torch and started welding that thing back together with a clothes hanger. And what happened on a CZ, you got the rear motor mount is a swivel that swivels and broke. And what happened, the motor was jerking so bad. I'm thinking, oh my God, here I am leading, and I'm trying to save the bike best I can. And it just kept jerking really hard, and just gave me big, huge blisters on my hand. And I just kept going. I wasn't going to give up. And then when I came in, we seen the whole rear motor mounts and everything was just shattered. The bike was fatigued from fishback racing it in the desert. It should have been a brand new bike, and we would have been a lot better off, but it was used, and we just went from there. And CZ kind of lied to me.
Yeah. Where did you finish overall for the day, Rex? Like 7th or 8th?
7th.
You got 7th. Now,
yes.
I would imagine that here you are on basically this clapped out CZ, which is, it's not a factory bike by any means. You and Harry put this thing together and you finish 8th against the best riders in the world. We're talking Walsink, DeCoster, Adolf Wheel, Brad Lackey, everybody who is everybody in 1975, and you get a 7th overall on this clapped out turd. I would think that CZ would have come to you and said, we want to give you a factory bike. We want to build you something special. Didn't they do that?
No, I never had. I think they were all kind of scared of me at that time. I mean, it's just because I had a little rough. I mean, I didn't take no bullshit from nobody. Right. I was kind of aggressive, and I don't know. It started back at the races with Yamaha. I don't know if you knew. My dad was pretty aggressive. What happened? My dad's really a mellow guy, but I had Yamaha come out. And they put a bounty on me at Corona Raceway. Anybody could beat me, get $50. And no one could beat me. But what happened was Weinert passed me. I passed him back. The manager of Yamaha walked out in front of me on the racetrack. And I had to swerve to miss him. And my dad told him, get off the track if you don't have a flag. And the guy threw a beer at my dad. And my dad just cold-cocked him right there on the racetrack. The next lap, I came around. The guy's laying out in the middle of the track. And it was going to be a big fight. And then I had all the Joneses, and we got off the bike to scrap and do whatever we had to do at the end there. And then it got broken up. But it was just me and my dad. We were against about 5 guys, all the Yamaha guys. It was Dwayne Jones, Gary Jones, Tripes, Weinert, all of us. And my dad said, let's go, because we was just going to take them all on. And then some colored guy came to us and says, hey, Mr. Staten, I'm on your side. And then my dad just says, rocket, let's go. And then I kind of just shoved Weinert at the time and went from there. And I was kind of, I got a bad rap. They were all scared of us. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's why you, is that why you think, yeah, well, I mean, is that why you think CZ or maybe some other manufacturers were not too keen on giving you a ride right away? I guess they weren't.
Yeah, I think that's what it boiled down to be. Basic. They just, I don't know. I didn't get the equipment I should have had. And when I did eventually get a good equipment,
right?
I mean, I kind of.
No, let me ask you this. Okay. Now, I get it. And yeah, I really didn't want to get, it's not that I didn't want to get into it, but you've had a reputation as being a scrapper on and off the track. And look, I didn't know if it was going to come up in conversation or not. But you did bring it up. and that's just the way it went. So after your incredible determination on that CZ, you had the Trans Am series in the fall. What were you riding there?
I started with Basset. I was on a Suzuki. We went to Suzuki with the full floaters, and what happened was I was leading the Trans Am at Saddleback. I was pulling away from everybody, and the rear brake springs broke in the rear hub and locked up the rear wheel, and I got a DNF there. Seemed like every time I got the lead and I got going, I guess I was a pretty rough rider, and I mean, I used to run with 20 pounds of air in all my tires because I told you can't run 16 in my tires because I'll get a flat, and I have to run 20 because I hit stuff so hard,
Yeah, it's something that you learn about tire pressure and so many different things, especially on bikes back then, where people don't realize about reliability issues, and a lot of it is experimental at the time. And until the day of the race, sometimes you really, really don't know how much abuse that bike is going to get. I want to thank my sponsor, Full Circle Racing, for being a supporter of the show for over 3 years now. Be sure to get a hold of Tom McAllister at Full Circle. He's got a wheel special going on for just $775, 18, 19, and 21-inch rims, new spokes, new nipples, lace and true. Send up your hubs. They'll refresh those, put it all together, and send it back to you for $775 plus shipping and handling. After 1976, Rex, you went back and forth with Honda, with Yamaha, with CZ, and then it could have been your reputation, as we discussed, but you wind up on a manufacturer who has an incredible history on street bikes, but nobody knows them in the off-road world or in motocross. You signed with Harley Davidson.
Yeah, they came to me.
How in God's name? I mean, I guess they came to other people first, or did they come to you and Tripes first? How did that happen?
No, what happened, they were trying different guys out. The racing manager was Dick O'Brien, and he was trying different guys out. And they were kind of doing a little bit of flat tracking at the time, and they wanted to kind of get into motocross. And somehow my name got brought up, and then they called me up and they asked me, hey, can we come out here? And I had a couple guys that we all met at Saddleback, and we were testing the bike, and it was like a couple guys rode them and says, man, I can't ride these things. These things are terrible. And then, I rode it, and I seemed to be the fastest on it. And they said, hey, we want to sign you. And then I went ahead and signed with them. I was trying to get a ride that year, but it wasn't going to happen. I was still with Basset. And I just kind of left out in the cold, and I thought, I'll go ahead and do it. I'm going to try to improve the bike and make it good, And then I did go to Europe a couple of times and test with them and see what happened, but we had problems blowing them up and stuff like that, and it went for about 3 years, but I only stayed on the bike for 2 years, 76 and 77. And then eventually they wanted to have me have a teammate. And at the first, it was a guy named Ricky O'Brien. And then after that, I think the Marty Tripes came in. And then I think Rich Arstead rode a little bit, a couple races. And I can't remember who else. There was a couple of other guys that kind of came in, rode. And then after I quit, I think 78, Don Kowalski got a ride over there in Florida with Harley. And then I went back to privateer, and then I was kind of top privateer of the Yamahas. And then that's when we came into 79, and then Mike Bell got hurt, and then Yamaha came to me and said, hey, would you like to ride this bike? I said, sure.
Give me a second here, because I think this is kind of important to what factory riders go through at that time. I understand you had one of the shortest test sessions ever. You flew all the way to Italy, and pistons and rings kept breaking in that Harley.
Yes, 20 minutes. I broke it in 20 minutes. They put another motor in. I broke it in 20 minutes. They go, okay, you go home now. I'm like, I came all the way over here to do that. I could do that at my house, But yeah, well, whatever. I mean, it was all right.
Yeah, I mean, and you and Marty Tripes, you put that Harley into the top 10 quite a few times, really.
Yeah, no, I was that 1 year I came from dead last all the way to second. Marty Smith 1 year to deal. I was second. Another lap, I would have probably got by him because I was in a lot better shape than everybody. I had to be, because that thing was so much of I didn't really enjoy it. It wasn't that good for me. And
Right.
it reminded me of old DT1 Yamaha.
Yeah.
What it reminded me of.
One of our product sponsors from the show, Keith Geisner, who wrote that great book, Finding Number 49, he wanted to know in 1977, after a lot of research and development in 76, how much better was that Harley with the aluminum swing arm, the different frame, and the Fox shocks? Was there a big improvement over the 76 bike?
Yeah, when they first gave it to me, it had forks on the back. And I'm like, I wrote it and I said, hey, no way I'm going to ride this thing. This thing's terrible. We was in Ocala, Florida, and it was in a sand track, you know, and it was so bad. I said, no, I'm not riding this. And then they started working on it. You know, they went with Kayaba, with piggybacks and stuff like that. And then we did the swinging arm, and we got it to work a lot better. But still,
Right.
The brakes didn't work that good. And I mean, we were outdated.
Yeah. Mechanics have such a big influence on the race, on the rider. And I think as a mechanic, many times you're just not a mechanic. I mean, you're traveling on the road all these days. You're like a best friend. You're a mechanic. In some cases, you probably got to be a therapist at some point too, depending on what's going on out there. You had two special mechanics, and they both had wonderful things to say about you when they knew we were going to do this interview. Tom Verlin from Harley Davidson and Dave Osterman. Tell me about your relationship with both Tom and Dave and traveling with those guys.
It was good. I mean, me and Tom, we were together with that, and then we kind of went with Yamaha. But what happened was when I signed with Yamaha, or at first they gave me Mike Bell's bike, and it was in Missouri, and I won that. I left third place. I had put about a minute and 45 seconds on Rick Burgett, and I came back in. And after that race, I told Kenny Clark, I said, this is like cheating. These bikes are so good, because I was top privateer, and the best I could do was fourth on a private bike. And when I got on that works bike, it was night and day difference. And then I ended up losing, I think, the championship by 2 points. I needed one more race.
Yeah.
I could win the championship. And then 1980, they signed me. And then we went to Daytona, won Daytona. And then what happened was at first, I won, I think, Lake Whitney, Rio Bravo. There was Rio Bravo. I won that one. I was leading the 500 points in the 500 Nationals. And then I came home and I was practicing. And I got thrown off and broke my hip. And that put me out for the next 5 races. It's like when I had a chance and I was right there, I guess I overdid it. I mean, I don't know about overdid it. I rode all the time and I practiced and I rode hard.
Right.
Things happened. My practice track was pretty tough.
You mentioned your Daytona win. That happened, to be exact, happened on March 8th in 1980. Do you remember a few days before that, what was leading up to that? I guess the mindset I was in when I was thinking about the question was, as a racer, we all have that day where you just know this is your day. And it could be on an amateur level, it could be on a pro level. But here you are at what seems to always be the granddaddy of racing, whether it's the Daytona 500 or the Daytona Supercross. But did you just have a special feeling that day about you and that Yamaha at Daytona?
What happened, I was kind of pissed off. What happened was the new bikes came in.
Yeah.
And everybody had their all new 1980 power valves. And I had my old 79 bike. And I was kind of mad because I didn't have my new bike. And I asked my mechanic, why didn't you go to LA and get my bike? He goes, I came from Oregon to Florida. I didn't want to drive all the way to LA. And then that was Tom Volin. And I didn't want to drive all the way back to Florida. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And I mean, I was so pissed off. I just said, hey, I hope you guys don't get my way today, because I'm going to take you out. I'll put you in the cheap seats. And Kenny Clark kind of got a laugh and goes, just mellow out or whatever. And I was just bummed because I didn't have my new bike and everybody else had brand new bikes. And I just went out there and I came off third and passed Donnie Hansen, and then Marty was leading and I passed Marty, and then I pulled a 12-second lead and I just took off. I came in and Kenny Clark says to me, it don't look like you need a new bike. I says, bullshit, I want a new bike. After 33 races, we got new bikes, And like Hannah had new bikes all the time and stuff. And my mechanic was kind of slack, and I always got kind of the seconds. I never got the best stuff, and I just deal with what I had. I was just happy to have what I had, you know.
Yeah.
And
it seems that anger and disappointment sometimes are your biggest motivations.
yeah, my dad used to get me riled up. You know, he could go out and tell me, "Oh, you better watch it today. Number 50 is going to spank you." And I come in after the race and I go, "What happened to 50?" He goes, "Oh, he had a bad day." my dad would get me so wound up, you know, and I was ready to kill when I got out there.
Yeah. Rex, we got to take a hard break. We'll be right back with more Rex Staten.
Vintco, who already has a full line of vintage parts, now has air shocks that are an exact duplicate of the original air shocks so popular in the late 70s. So whether you're looking to build a full racer or museum showpiece, these shocks will give you that incredible 70s look and improve your bike's performance. These new air shocks are fully rebuildable with Vintco rebuild kits, and all shocks are hand assembled in the USA with all new components. Every component is brand new. Just like the originals, our air shocks are adjustable with 2 chambers, high and low pressure, giving you tremendous flexibility for settings of your bike suspension. The Vintco air shocks come fully assembled and ready for installation. Just add air or nitrogen. The kits include the manual and spacers. Visit Vintco.com to check out the air shocks and all that Vintco has to offer to help you get back on track and to keep that ride going.
I want to thank Vintco.com for being a sponsor of our show for over 3 years now. They have over 1,000 products in their catalog. Be sure to visit them at Vintco.com. My guest this evening is Rex Staten. We've talked about a lot of different things from Daytona to CZs to Makos and so much more. Hey, Rex, did you ever get an offer on a contract to ride for any factory and regrettably turn it down?
No, I would never turn nothing down. Even when they ever asked me to go to Europe or whatever, I always went, you know. And
Yeah.
this is what happened. We wanted us to go to South Africa. I thought they meant South America, but they asked Hannah, "You want to go to South Africa?" And he's like, "No, I don't want to go," because he was in his own little world, you know, at that time.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hell no, I'll go," because I went to Australia, won the Supercross over there, and did that kind of stuff. And what I decided to do, I'm going to go to South Africa. In '79, I went over there. And after that, for 5 years, I never had a winner over here because I was always in South Africa. And what would happen, all the Europeans would come over, Hawking Carlquist, Harry Everett, all of them would come over and we would race in South Africa, in international race. And I remember going over there and I won those races. And I remember Hawking Carlquist showing up. And over there, international races, you could have a 125, 250, or 500. And I only had a Yamaha 400.
Right.
I just rode that. And it was funny because Hawking Carlquist came over on a 250, and I spanked him 3 motos out of the first race. And he thought, I'm going to ride an open bike. And then he rode he was a 250 world champion at that time.
Yeah.
And Harry Everett was there. There was a bunch of guys. There was guys from Germany, Austria, and stuff that was racing. There was probably a good 10, 12 guys from Europe that was racing in South Africa with me. And then the next week we got racing. Hawking Carlquist rode a 360 and I beat him even worse. Those 3 motos, I won that one. And then he thought, I'm going back to my 250. And then when we went to Cape Town, I ended up winning those 3 races too. And it was like, we had 9 motos and I won all 9 motos, you know, and with the Europeans. And no, it was good. It was good racing, you know, when everybody's on production bikes and stuff. I mean, I could usually just spank them all, you know.
So you were a 3-time national champion in South Africa?
Yes. And
what is the series like down there? How long is the series? Is it similar to our national series here or the Trans Am series?
We only raced for about 5 laps. I mean, it was quick because we ran on alcohol. We couldn't run on gas because just the way the law was at that time.
Right.
And sponsored by BP Petroleum. And I went down there, my first race, I did gas against everybody on alcohol. And then they tried to protest me, says I can't do that. And I didn't know how to do alcohol. I had to go, for a week, I had to go out and test and drill jets and do all that, just to try to figure out how to make it work. And then I got it to work. And then it was like, the bike runs about 10% better. And what happens, a regular gas tank could go for about 60 minutes. And when you're on alcohol, it would go for 28 minutes. I mean, it sucks it really fast. And I liked it, and it was funny. And I mean, I stirred up a little bit of stuff down there. You know, I went down there on one track at PE. It was a sand track. I took a paddle tire, you know, because I was with Weiner and all of us. We were racing in Oakland, California when Weiner came with the paddle tire. I had a paddle tire. I took to South Africa. I took a couple of them for my teammates because I had 5 guys on my team. And, you know, I had the 100 guys and junior guys and 250 guys and a couple guys on the 500s. And we won all the classes in those years because Honda used to be number 1 down there. It was Castro Honda. And then Yamaha wanted to take over. And then we went down BP Yamaha. We ended up winning everything. And then the next year, Marlboro came in. And then they give me all these cigarettes and stuff. I go, I don't smoke or whatever. And I just give them to people or whatever. But meanwhile, they picked us up. And then it was like the first year they loved me. The second year they liked me. And third year they like kind of want to get rid of me because I was winning everything down there, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like when you win it all the time, they just get kind of bummed out or whatever.
Sure.
You know, I mean, I can see their point, whatever. And I was going to stay, but then there a bunch of stuff started coming down, the apartheid and all that. And I thought, no, I don't really want to be involved in all this because they were coming in and killing the white ladies and cutting their heads off. And I mean, it was pretty bad stuff when I was there. And I thought, I better get out of there.
Hey, Rex, you also spent some time in Australia, didn't you?
Yes, I was over there 3 times. I went over there. Me and Mike Bell went over the first time, and Mike Bell won. I got second. And the second time, me and Marty Smith went over, and I won. And it was funny because I got stuck in the starting gate, and I was last, and I had to work my way through the pack. And as I'm working my way through the pack, their number 1 guy was named Stephen Gall.
Yeah.
And there was these 4 big jumps, and they couldn't jump them, and I could jump them. And Stephen Gall went. It was the last lap. I was catching him, and we come in the last lap. We come to those 4 jumps, and then he crisscrossed underneath me, and I came down and landed on top of him, and we both crashed. And I always seemed to get up faster than everybody else. And then I won the race, and everybody used to like throw Coke cans and stuff at me. The people in the grandstands.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because they thought I did it deliberately, and I really didn't. I was innocent, you know. But that night, I was going to, clean their clocks.
Yeah.
You know?
Somebody had that question too. When I said I was going to do the interview, they said, ask him about the incident with Steve Gall in Australia. But again, I wasn't sure it was going to come up in conversation, but here we are, and there's nothing wrong with that. I've seen you every year at the Langston Motorsports bike show. I saw you this year, and we'll talk about that in a second. But last year, you were down there and you had some special go-karts and things that you're helping out young racers with. Tell us about that, Rex.
Yeah, what it is a mini sprint. We run Jawa 500 motors or GM 500 motors on alcohol. And it's like a little sprint car. And that way, take the little kids, you know, get them into racing and stuff. And I always work with them. They come to my place usually, and I have a racetrack at my house. And we usually train them out here to get them to do at least 50 or 500 laps before we go racing. And I mean, the youngest one that ever been out here has been 3.5 years old. But mostly we started them at about 5 years old. But I got 2 girls right now, twins. One's got short hair, one's got long hair. They're 9 years old, and they really into it. They love it. And I always tell them, no, you got to make sure you do your chores. You got to have good grades and do all that. Well, that way they got something to look forward to. And if they do that, then their dad bought them a car and stuff like that. And then we just go race. I got 13 cars. And my wife kind of says to me, what are you doing? You know, I got so many cars, and it's crazy. One shop is all bikes. I rebuild old bikes and stuff and putting them together to sell them. Then I got another shop that's fully race cars, you know, and I got to have 3 big 36-foot trailers to pull them to the racetrack. And then I just kind of work with all the kids. And how this all got started was my daughter's husband got shot. Yeah, he was a therapist at the hospital, and he was celebrating it with his neighbor, and they were kind of drinking. And somehow they got talking about politics, and the guy shot him. And and I had a little grandson, 7 years old, and a little girl, 3. And I just told him, you know, his dad was really a good good dad. They would play golf. He would never really got dirty. I said, no, we're going to go get dirty now, you know, and I put him in a race car, and I said, hey, I went out and built a racetrack, bought a water truck, bought a tractor, and just told him I want 1,000 laps out of you. And he went out and did 1,000 laps, and then he came back in and won the championship that year. And then the second year he won it again. And then this year he's racing up with us big boys. He only weighs 65 pounds. He's 11 years old, and he's driving a car that's 80 horsepower. It goes to 0-70 in 2 seconds. You know?
Unbelievable.
And it's good for them. You know, it's just, and then I always try to tell them, you know what, you don't need drugs. You don't need alcohol. Just stay away from all that stuff.
Yeah.
I've never drank. I've never smoked. I've never done drugs my whole life. And that's just the way I was, you know.
We're going to take one more break, and then we will be back to wrap up with Rocket Rex Staten. Maybe we can find out how you got the name Rocket Rex Staten, too. We'll be right back. Hey, it's Joe Abadi for Vintage Motocross Q&A. When you're replacing a cylinder or a gasket or doing a top end on your bike, many times it's very, very difficult to get to the nuts that are on the base. And you want to be sure that you torque those evenly whenever you change a top end. Motion Pro has come up with this great tool. It's the torque adapter, okay? You can put any size wrench in there and you can tighten it up. On the back is a 3/8 drive. You can put your torque wrench in there, get the wrench on the nut that's on the base of your cylinder, and make sure everything is torqued evenly. This is a great tool. I have one in the shop. We use it all the time. It comes with instructions as well. Go see your local dealer or get to motionpro.com. And don't forget, go over to Vintage Motocross Q&A to get a 20% discount on all Motion Pro tools. You don't have to go over to Vintage Motocross Q&A. You can just go right to the Motion Pro website, and when you check out, use the code MP9135, 20% off everything across the board at Motion Pro. So how did you get the name Rocket Rex, Rex?
What happened was at Corona Raceway, no one could beat me there, and I used to stand around on the tracks, do wheelies down the downhill, standing on the seat, reaching over, tapping people. And everybody thought, this guy is crazy, you know. And I would stop and pick up my girlfriend on the last lap and give her a ride on the finish the race, you know, and still win the race.
Right.
And some lady from Cycle News came to me and she says, I had Sexy Rexy written down the side of my pants. And she goes, I'm going to call you Rocket Rex. I'm like, why is that? She says, you just run off and leave everybody. You don't give nobody a chance. I'm like, yeah, told me go. And I go, you know?
Yeah.
And that's how that all got brought up. And then I just kind of stuck with Rocket.
Yeah. I think in our sport, Rocket Rex is better than Sexy Rexy, personally.
Yeah, I think so. I had a bunch of little different names. There was Wreck-It Rex, and, you know, because I was breaking everything. And there was stuff on there. There was Staten because I was the devil. And it was great. It was crazy.
Hey, Rex, you know, we were talking a little while ago about how you've given a lot back to the kids with the go-karts and the car racing. But I also learned that you've given back quite a bit to rehabilitated prisoners, that you teach plumbing to prisoners who are being rehabilitated. How long have you been doing this? Do you go into the prison to do this? How does it work?
No, they would come out to our job sites, and the company I would work for, they would hire them, and then I would just take them out. I was kind of the teacher, trainer, and I would show them how to do it, and then try to get them on the right step. You know, I mean, a lot of guys, they all full tattooed and all that, you know, and they hardcore. They hook up with the wrong people when they're young, and they get in the wrong group, you know, and I just try to work with them on that way. And I mean, I do everything. Like yesterday, I was out with the firemen. I had a bunch of firemen that were at my house, and we were out teaching motocross and stuff. And I teach all the kids and all that, you know, basically how to ride. And I just spend a lot of time with everybody I can do. And, you know, I have a big following. A lot of people always trying to call me, go, hey, can you do this? I'm like, my days are pretty thin, but I always try to make time. 2 days ago, I had all the Speedway guys come from Arizona, Kingman, come out here to practice. They practice on my track. I mean, I have the outlaw cars come out here, speedway bikes. I have the big Harley guys come out here, and it's kind of when at the speedway races, they have Harley races.
Yeah.
And sometimes those guys come out and they practice, and there's really no practice tracks around here. And they just call me up and go, hey, can we come and practice? And I usually, set everything up for them. I tell, it's cost you $50. That's for the whole day. I water the track. I grade it. I do everything. And they just love it. And they coming all over all the time. I got guys coming from New Zealand and stuff like that too that comes over here. And there's a big race coming up in Bakersfield.
Yeah.
That's
incredible. That's really incredible, Rex, how much you actually do give back to not only the sport of motocross, but here with this plumbing thing and rehabilitated prisoners, as well as the dirt track cars for the kids. Supercross and motocross, do you still watch it? Do you still like it? Is there anything you change about it?
I just think the American boys need to get a little tougher.
Yeah.
What the hell? That Australia guys beat us? What the hell is that all about? It's just like, hey, you guys better get waking up because these kids are going, Deegan, I mean, that kid's really good. I mean, I love that kid, because he's got a big heart of gold and he trains hard and he works hard, and that's what it takes. I think sometimes the guys make too much money and their heart's not really into it.
Yeah.
I used to ride every day and train, but I mean, our bikes was nothing like what these guys have today. We didn't make that much money. It was funny because I would practice by myself. Everybody goes, how are you just practice? I would think DeCoster's behind me and I'm practicing and I make a mistake. I'm like, oh, he passed me. And then I ride like hell, till I passed him back. I'm just imagining this. And I rode right by myself, and how I did it. And I just, I got up every day, ran 6 miles, swam for 2 hours, and went out and rode 10 gallons of gas, and then came back and, worked in my gym and stuff. And, I was a boxer and all that. And I just kind of worked on the speed bag for my reflexes and all that for the gate, to watch the gate, the pin on the gate, and that was it.
Yeah.
And my dad just wanted to make sure I could take care of myself.
Yeah, it was a different time, Rex. And you were one of the, one of the pioneers, one of the old school guys that knew what it was to be self-motivated. And that's not so easy for a lot of young riders today. And it's partially their fault. It's partially not their fault, because the teams and the trainers and the accessibility they have to things that you didn't have, like trainers and swimming and all this other stuff, it kind of softens them up a little bit. They're I think faster maybe in lap times, but that's due to equipment, that's due to training. It's due to so many different things. Rex, we're almost out of time. Is there anything that you want to promote, anything that you want to talk about that I may have forgotten that you want to bring up right now?
No, you kind of did the whole thing, It's just like it's good to have a family behind you and all that, and I know it's just sometimes I think about just adopting some kids and train them and do that, but I raised 2 boys and 2 girls, and my boys wasn't really into it, and sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't. I have 2 boys right now I'm kind of looking at. I mean, not racing motorcycles, but they are in cars and Formula 1 cars and stuff like that. They 14 and a half and 15 and a half, and they usually drive my sprint cars and stuff like that. I help them out, and but yeah, they're really good kids, and I mean, you couldn't ask for any better kids than these, and I just kind of try to guide them in the right way, like, hey, be careful for these women, because they get you in a lot of trouble and they cost you a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
yeah, I remember when motorcycles were dangerous and women were safe. But
that's right.
times have changed. Rex, I want to thank you for being my guest today and for answering all these questions. I think we covered quite a bit, and who knows, maybe we'll spend some time together again and talk about more things in the life and times of Rex Staten.
All right, Joe. Yeah, no problem. I really appreciate you doing this.
Thanks, Rex. You're very welcome, and don't disconnect from. You can go about your business. Just don't disconnect, and we'll catch up with you, Rex. Thank you again, Rex Staten.
All right, Joe. Very much. I really appreciate it. You have a nice day.
Thanks, buddy. Rex Staten has been my guest tonight. We're going to take a little commercial break here, and then we'll be back to wrap it up with a few announcements and a couple of other things here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Hey, it's Joe Abadi for Vintage Motocross Q&A. One of my favorite tools from Motion Pro is their T-handle wrench with the special JIS tips on it. What I really like about it is there's a little opening on each end. You can put your tip in there. It's magnetic. You don't have to worry about losing it. This is a great item to have, especially for you vintage guys, where you've got your screws with JIS screws in the cases. They're very, very hard to get out. Nothing gives you more torque and better grip than a T-handle wrench. Get over to motionpro.com or see your local dealer. Don't forget, go to Vintage Motocross Q&A for a 20% discount on all Motion Pro tools. The 2024 York Swap Meet is coming up in York, Pennsylvania. That happens on January 21st. That's a Sunday. The night before, there is the Potomac Vintage Riders Banquet, their end-of-year banquet. But the swap meet, the 21st. I will be there. Sue Fish will be a guest this year as well. Get a table, get your space ready now for the York Swap Meet 2021. What else we got going on? Oh, we got t-shirts are still available. You can follow a link in the show description. Get a t-shirt, get a hoodie, just $19.99 for the t-shirts, a couple of bucks more, get you a hoodie. Tom McAllister still making backing plates for CZs, just $179. Without the logo, $169. Thank you, Racer X, for keeping our ad in the back of your magazine month after month. We greatly appreciate that. Thank you, Scott Wallenberg. Well, Keith Geisner, still got some great books out there. Discovering 6 Days. I think all the Finding Number 49 books are gone. If not, be a wonderful time to get one of those. Who else is you know who else is helping us out a lot? George Ackerman and the Moto Barn. Both George Ackerman and Mike Chamberlain are show supporters. You want to be a show supporter of Vintage Motocross Q&A, you could be getting some publicity just like this, and it doesn't cost you a whole lot of money either. Thank you, George Ackerman and Mike Chamberlain. Hope you're doing well, Mike. And Mike's got a fabulous little real estate company down there. I think it's called High Desert Realty down there in Southern California. I want to thank Mike Chamberlain and Joyce for helping us out here at the show. Well, that about wraps it up for this edition of Vintage Motocross Q&A. I want to thank Rex Staten once again, all of our sponsors, and you, the viewers at home who tune in every week. Thanks for watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be back next week. Stay tuned. You'll find out who my guest will be. Till then, take care.